Hello, everybody, and welcome into another edition of the Horns Huddle here live on Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. It is me, Matthew Miller, today, hanging out with you guys. Mark is out for this week. He will be out next week, but we will all be out actually next week. There will be no show next week at Memorial Day, but please hit that like button. Please subscribe because every other Monday we will be here, rain or shine, on Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. I'm coming to you live from the Texas channel, and I'm coming to you live from Mark Rogers TV on Twitter. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. It really helps out this channel, guys. Really helps us grow. I really appreciate you guys for being here. Go to ticketsmarter.com and type in code BIG for $10 off a purchase of $100 or more, and then type in code BIG20 for $20 off a purchase of $300 or more. It helps out Mark, helps out your wallet. So please do that, guys. It really helps out what we're trying to build here. I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much. And we're going to jump into this 6th edition Texas building a super offense for 2025. We'll talk about that. We're also going to be ranking running back rooms here in the SEC. We're new to this conference, and let me tell you, it was hard to do this, guys. I'm going to go through it when we get there. Very hard to do it. I think it's debatable. I think that number one spot, honestly, is between 3 or 4 teams. But let's jump into this topic first. Texas building a super offense for 2025. So, Dakorien Moore decommits from LSU. He is the number 1 wide receiver recruit in next year's class. He is the 3rd best player according to 247 Sports. In my opinion, I think they do the best job. On3 does a very good job as well. I completely ignore ESPN's rankings. I think they're terrible. But overall, Texas could be building something really special, guys, with the recruiting class they're building for next year. Dakorien Moore, like I said, the number 1 ranked guy. You also have Jamie French, who right now is crystal ball to Ohio State, but he's in the mix here for Texas. And then Khalil Lockett is another guy that's really high up on the list for Texas. Those are 4 guys in the top 30 recruits nationally. Those are 3 out of the 4 best wide receivers in the country. And I believe Texas is going to be there for down to the bottom 5 or top 5 for all of these guys. I think Dakorien Moore has been crystal balled by 3 different people to Texas. I would be shocked at this point if he doesn't go to Texas. Like I said, the number 1 recruit in the country. His comp is Chris Olave, so that's something that Steve Sarkisian would love to have, a smaller guy, but a great route runner, great agility. Something we haven't had here on the 40 acres in a long time. He would also be the highest rated recruit Texas has got at the wide receiver position in over a decade. The last guy that we got that was this highly rated was Mike Davis, who turned out to be a good player, but he was never a great player for Texas. I don't even think he made the NFL. Overall, kind of a disappointment, Mike Davis was, but he is the highest rated recruit in the history of Texas football. If Dakorien Moore does commit to Texas and play for Texas, he'll be the second highest rated recruit ever. That's ahead of someone like Roy Williams, who probably is regarded, I shouldn't say probably, is regarded as the best wide receiver in the history of Texas football. And then I believe all 3 of these guys actually might be ranked, and Jamie French, Khalil Lockett, Dakorien Moore, if they all come here, would be the highest ranked guy behind Mike Davis. Now, they might be in there with Roy Williams, but they'd be 3 of the top 5 ever, which is crazy to say. Jamie French right now is committed. He's from Florida. He is committed to Ohio State. Crystal ball to Ohio State. I think Texas, honestly, right now is running in 2nd place for him. I think he's pretty firm on his Ohio State commitment. We'll see if we can flip him. Another guy that, honestly, out of the 3 I'm going to mention, Dakorien Moore, Jamie French, and Khalil Lockett, I think he's probably the least athletic out of the 3. I think Dakorien Moore is probably the 2nd, Jamie French being the least, but still would be a nice get. 6'1", 175, or sorry, 6 foot 175. They're all around the same height, 5'11" to 6'1". And I think it'd just help out speed-wise, route running-wise, be a great addition. I think he is the least likely to commit to Texas. I think Dakorien Moore being the most likely. This guy up, in my opinion, is the 2nd most likely in Khalil Lockett. This guy is a freak, guys. A freak. Absurd combine testing numbers. Great track and field athlete. 6'7" wingspan, and he's only 6'1". He can go up and get the ball. He can run away from people. In my opinion, I think he might be the most talented of the group. I think Texas has got to get him. He's the 2nd highest rated wide receiver in the country behind Dakorien Moore, and I think he's special. I think, to me, would not shock me by the end of the year if he's number 1 with his senior season coming up. I think he's a freak. Someone that can run like that and jump like that is very rare. Those guys usually don't come along very often, and usually it's one or the other. Usually you have a jump ball guy or you have a track guy. This guy is both. He can do both. He is a special player. If Texas can land 2 out of 3 of these guys, and then you have Jonte Cook coming back, Ryan Wingo will be here. Unless Matthew Golden has a great year, he'll like a really good year, like first or second round type pick, I think he'll be back. Silas Bolden will probably be back. This can be a special room with Arch Manning coming in at quarterback. Are you kidding me? This is the type of offense that Alabama had a couple years ago under Steve Sarkisian when he was the offensive coordinator, where you had a great quarterback. You're going 4 to 6, like real depth-wise at wide receiver, where these guys will play in the NFL. That's what we're almost building here. If you can get 2 out of 3 of these guys, if we get 3 out of 3, I think we've overtaken Ohio State in recent years of deepest wide receiver room if we get all 3. I think 2, it's still a debate, but 3 for sure. This would be a special offense. This would be a special class. It's something us Texas fans were looking forward to when we hired Sark to get a class like this. I cannot wait. It'll be awesome. It's going to be a very awesome summer. There's a real chance Texas could be competing for not just a great offense recruiting class-wise, but overall the best class going for the 2025 cycle. So very exciting times for Texas, especially at that wide receiver room with Decorion Moore, Jamie French, and Khalil Lockett. I think we get 2 out of 3. I really believe that. I think Decorion Moore is going to end up at Texas. I would say Khalil Lockett is probably the guy behind him. Jamie French right now, he's that guy that you see in the rearview mirror. He's not, he isn't caught up to us. He's not riding right next to us. You can't look over at him. He's back there. I'm hoping he can catch up, get with the program, and come to Texas. We'll see what happens. But I think Decorion Moore is going to end up here, and I think Khalil Lockett is 50-50. I think Jamie French right now is 10 to 15% chance. I think Ohio State really wants him to continue that tradition of great wide receivers, because honestly, they don't really have anyone in this realm right now if he decommits. So it'd be very interesting. I think they pay a lot of money to keep him. But right now, I think there's a good chance Texas lands 2 out of 3 of them. Jamie French is the best wide receiver in class of 2025. That's your opinion, and you can definitely have that. 5 Adam, thank you for being here, by the way. First time I've seen your name, so please hit that like button. Please subscribe. Next, Bama will have 5-star Ty Simpson, who is ready to play this year if needed. I honestly think, and I got an argument in the comment sections with someone, I think Austin Mack by the end of the year is your guys' backup quarterback. I think he's got the talent. I think he's knows the system better than the other 2 guys in Dylan Lonergan and Ty Simpson. But overall, it's a really good quarterback room for sure. I think I had him ranked 3rd. We did quarterback room rankings last week with Mark. I went Texas, Georgia, Alabama. Or maybe I went Texas, Georgia, Ole Miss, Alabama. They were either 3rd or 4th. Yeah, Dylan Lonergan, definitely. Like I said, even Alabama guys don't really know who your backup's going to be right now. It's between, obviously, Austin Mack, Ty Simpson, Dylan Lonergan. Mack is 4th QB on the depth chart. From what I've read, it seems still like an open competition. I could be wrong. Like I said, who knows? But I bet by the end of the year, Austin Mack's your backup quarterback. I have a feeling, I know you're going to say this, hate to hear this, I think Ty Simpson transfers out. I think he's the lone odd man out there. I think he eventually – I disagree, Adam. I just disagree. We're not going to agree on this. That's fine. You're an Alabama fan. I'm a Texas fan. You're probably more locked in, but I think Ty Simpson's going to be he will be on a different roster next year. That's my opinion. Maybe Dylan Lonergan. I think Austin Mack is the guy for the future for you guys, but I could be wrong. Let's jump into running back room. So I ranked the SEC running back rooms. This was harder to do than I thought it was going to be. One, we just had guys transfer into certain places. We'll get there with Ole Miss. And guys, only 7 out of the top 20 rushers from the SEC are back. That is crazy to me. A lot of production either transferred out or went to the NFL draft. A team we'll get into a little bit later is going to be a little bit lower than you probably think in Georgia. But let's jump in. Number 1, it is a debate, guys. It is a debate, but it's only a debate between 3 schools, and we'll get there 1, 2, and 3. I think a debate for this top spot. I went with Texas. Texas has Jaden Blue and Cedric Baxter coming back. If Cedric Baxter would have been in the SEC, he would be the 2nd highest returning back with 659 yards. He also had averaged 6.5 yards per carry. Jaden Blue, 398 yards, 3 touchdowns, 135 yards receiving. Obviously, they both played behind Jonathan Brooks. Cedric Baxter actually was the starter going into last year. After a couple games, Jonathan Brooks took that over and ran away with it, no pun intended. But I think Jaden Blue is going to end up being the better player. I really like Cedric Baxter. Remember, these guys are back-to-back number one players at the running back position. Depending on what recruiting site you look at, Jaden Blue was ranked as low as third, high as first. And the only reason he fell to 3 is because he skipped his senior year of high school when he came to Texas. Cedric Baxter was number 1 or 2, depending on where you looked at. So very highly rated recruits coming out of high school. And I think Jaden Blue, he can carry on that tradition of having back-to-back-to-back running backs first taken off the board. That would be the first time in the history of college football in the NFL that has ever happened, where you have 3 guys in a row come from the same school, number 1 off the board in the NFL draft. I think Jaden Blue can do that next year. So we'll see what happens. You also have Jared Gibson, who was the number 3 rated running back coming in as a freshman, and Christian Clark, who is the 40th ranked running back coming in, or 42nd if you want to go by 247. Trey Wisner is a walk-on who played pretty well last year, averaged 6.1 yards per carry, only had 73 attempts, but I think he gets a lot more this year. So I have Texas 1. Like I said, this is a true debate. I think you can debate 1 through 3 here, just like I thought you could debate Georgia and Texas for the best quarterback room in the SEC, but I went with Texas here. Let's jump into your comments. Is Texas recruiting Josh Sharma? Yep, we'll get there at 5, Adam. Number 2, Ole Miss. They just got a couple other guys here, and they've recruited this position well. Obviously, Quinshawn Junkins would have been the returning rusher. If he came back, he chose to go to Ohio State to go with Tragon Henderson. I believe that's the best running back duo in the country. I could be wrong there. But they do bring back Ulysses Bentley, I believe the 5th. 540 yards, 5.7 yards per carry. They just got a commitment from this guy and Rashad Amos. 5.1 yards per carry, 13 touchdowns, over 1,000 yards at Miami of Ohio. And you also bring in the best running back from LSU last year in Logan Diggs, 653 yards, 7 touchdowns, 5.5 yards per carry. This is a really deep room, 3 deep. Like I said, you can debate them for this top spot. I think there's a tier list. I think 1 through 3 you can debate. Number 3, people are going to hate this as Texas fans, but A&M. A&M has 3 very good running backs in Le'Veon Moss, 484 yards, 5 touchdowns, 7.6 yards per catch, so he's good out of the backfield as well. Amari Daniels, 532 yards, 5.1 yards per carry and 6 touchdowns. And then Reuben Owens, who I believe was the number 1 ranked running back coming out of high school a couple years ago. He had an okay year. His yards per carry weren't great at 3.8, but 385 yards total, 3 touchdowns. So he averaged 9.1 yards per catch, which is fantastic. This is a really deep running back room. Again, 3 deep. The reason I put Texas 1, obviously you can call me biased, but I think if you were to rank the best running back from each team, I think Jaden Blue or Cedric Baxter, whatever you want to go with, is better than the starters for A&M and Ole Miss. I do think they have slightly better depth. But unless an injury happened, usually your third string running back's not getting a lot of carries. It's usually 1, 2, your first 1 and 2 guys, and then the third guy gets, sprinkled in there. So that's why I went with Texas. But depth-wise, A&M and Ole Miss are very good. I like their top 3. Like I said, I think you debate that number 1 spot between all 3. Now, I'm going to get hate for this. I know I am, because Georgia fans are probably going to say this is too low. I have Georgia at 4. The reason for this, Kendall Milton is gone. Edwards is gone. Those are your 2 leading rushers, both gone. Your returning rusher is Roderick Robinson the second. He did average 7.2 yards per carry, but it was only on 24 attempts. And then you bring in Trevor Etienne, who honestly, he had a good year, but he didn't even have the best year on his team of Florida last year. Montreal Johnson was better at Florida than Trevor Etienne, but you do have the number 2 ranked running back coming in Nate Frazier, and the number 21 running back in Dwight Phillips Jr. So overall, if Trevor Etienne stays healthy, I think this is a proper ranking. Now, if he gets hurt, things could get interesting because you could be relying on freshmen or Roderick Robinson, who doesn't have much experience. It could be very interesting there. And this is where, like I said, I think you see a drop-off after the first 3. There's a lot of talent in a lot of these rooms, but not a lot of production. I know, Adam, you're going to hate that, but when we get to Alabama, I'll explain why. You guys have a crap ton of talent, just not a lot of production returning. Number 5, we won't have to wait much longer. I have Alabama. Jamarion Miller, very high on, but he only has 41 attempts. last year, 1 touchdown, 4.9 yards per carry, and Justice Haynes, 6.7 yards per carry and 1 touchdown. As he mentioned, you have Richard Young, but I honestly don't think he factors too much here. I think he's going to get passed up by Daniel Hill or Kevin Riley, both top 10 running backs in the high school class last year. This room is talented. If this room plays to their talent, I think you could put them in contention for the number 1 spot. The reason why I have them behind Georgia is because Trevor Etienne is more established. He is. Trevor Etienne would be the best running back on Alabama. I think he would start. Talent-wise, I would agree with you. You could probably jump them above Georgia, but I have to go with what has happened plus what I think is going to happen. So that's why I have Georgia there at 4 and Alabama at 5. Could Alabama pass them up? Absolutely. Alabama has that talent in the running back room with the 2 guys they just brought in on top of Jamarion Miller and Justice Haynes, but I can't do that. I just can't do that. That'd be based off hope, and I don't make rankings based off hope. I'll give you some bumps there with your talent, but I'm not going to bump you up past Georgia. I'm not going to bump you up past Ole Miss. I'm not going to bump you up past A&M, and I'm definitely not going to bump you up past Texas. Bama has 2 5-stars too. Did you watch a day, but I don't know what the heck that means. Running back is to find in SEC D-line, O-line matter. Adam, we are ranking running back rooms. We're not ranking offensive line rooms or defensive line rooms. This isn't about that. This is ranking your running backs. If I were to put these running backs on Texas, do I think Texas would be better or worse? If I put Jamarion Miller and Justice Haynes and traded them for Jane Blue and Cedric Baxter, I would take Texas running backs. Would I take Le'Veon Moss, Amari Daniels, hell, Reuben Owens over what I've seen for Jamarion Miller and Justice Haynes? No, I wouldn't at this point. Could I at the end of the year? Absolutely. Ole Miss, same thing. That's what we're ranking here. We're not ranking the offensive lines that run behind. We will get there, man. We will get there, and Alabama will be up pretty high. Running back is easy to find. Don't disagree with that. You're not understanding how I'm ranking these is the problem. But we'll get back to this. Number 6, Georgia. Montrell Johnson comes in as the, I believe, second leading return rusher on his team, which means because Trevor Etienne transferred, obviously, he doesn't play into this. I'm just talking about what team he started with. Montrell Johnson, 817 yards, 5 touchdowns, 5.4 yards per carry. I'm really high on this guy. I think without having to split snaps with Trevor Etienne, if he stays healthy, he'll be over 1,000 yards. They have Trayvon Webb there. He's a short yardage back. I expect him to get more carries. And then a guy that health is the big thing. Cam Carroll, 516 yards, 4.6 yards per carry, and 3 touchdowns. He had 700 yards per carry in 700 yards in 2020, and that was 2021 stats I just read. He was hurt last year with Tulane, so he didn't play. I expect him to be a good player if he stays healthy. I really like him. I like his talent, but we'll see if he can stay healthy. Number 7, they bring back the leading rusher in the SEC, which I was surprised by, Auburn. Auburn comes back with Jarquez Hunter, 1,000 yards total and 7 touchdowns. You also have Damari Alston with 5 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns, 320 yards. And Jeremiah Cobb, who I expect to get more playing time, he was really good out of the backfield with 6.7 yards per catch, 2 touchdowns, 5.2 yards per carry. Again, you bring back your 3 leading rushers in a Hugh Freeze offense with Peyton Thorne as your quarterback. So I think you're going to have to run the football. I like this room. Is the high-end talent there? Probably not, but I have to give some respect when you bring back the leading rusher in the SEC and Jarquez Hunter. And I'm saying the leading rusher that's coming back. He was not the leading rusher last year. I believe he was like 8th or 9th. But coming back, he is the leading rusher. So Auburn at 7. This is one, guys, I'm higher on than I was last year. Oklahoma last year was very down on. You have Javonte Barnes, who was hurt last year. I do like his talent, but health has been a concern. 3.8 yards per carry. He only played 7 games, 1 touchdown. You can tell he was gimpy the whole season. Gavin Sawchuk, who had a really good breakout season for them, 744 yards, 6.2 yards per carry, 9 touchdowns. And then you bring in the number 1 ranked running back out of high school last year in Taylor Tatum. I'm higher on this Oklahoma running back room. I think I had him ranked like 9th or 10th in the Big 12. If they were in the Big 12, they'd be a top 4 or 5 running back room. I think they could jump up here. If Javonte Barnes is healthy, they could jump up. If Gavin Sawchuk can repeat what he does and Taylor Tatum lives up to that number 1 ranked running back out of high school recruit, they can jump up a lot. I think Oklahoma and Alabama at number 5 and Oklahoma at number 9 can make the most movement on this list. I think Alabama could end the year as the second best running back room. I don't think they overtake Texas, but we'll see. I think Oklahoma could jump up to probably number 3 or 4. That's how talented this running back room is. Again, I reward talent, but I can only reward it so much. I have to see production. I have to see it. If I don't see the production, I'll bump you up a little, but I can't go out of this world with it. That was number 8. Number 9 is South Carolina. It was kind of weird going in. They lost their leading rusher. He transferred to Memphis, and Mario Anderson. He had a really good year last year. They do bring in Rocket Sanders, who had over 1,400 yards 2 years ago. He was injured with Arkansas last year, so he only had 209 yards and had an abysmal 3.4 yards per carry. So I'm looking for a bounce back from him. But they also bring back Oscar Attaway, who had 738 yards last year and 6 touchdowns. Really good, solid season for him. And they bring in an FCS transfer from SC State, South Carolina State, 809 yards and 9 touchdowns for him, and Jawarn Howell. So this is a deep running back room. And again, this is kind of a room that could jump up as well. If Rocket Sanders can get back to what he was 2 years ago in that 1,400-yard mark, hell, if he can just get to 800 to 1,000 yards, I think this room jumps up. This is a really deep room with a lot of talent. I like this room, but it comes down to Rocket Sanders' health. So we'll have to see what he does. If he's healthy, I think this room moves up quite a bit, just like Oklahoma. But we'll have to see. Number 10 was Tennessee. Obviously, they lose Jalen Wright, who went to the NFL. They return it with Dylan Sampson, 106 carries, 604 yards, 7 touchdowns. Jalen Wright rushed for over 1,000 yards last year. It was the first time since like 2015 or 16 Tennessee has had that. So let's see if they can go back-to-back with Dylan Sampson. If he can just keep his yards per carry average, honestly, he'll get there because he'll get the bulk of the carries. They do bring in the 13th best running back out of high school in Peyton Lewis from Virginia. And then Khalifa Keith does return. I like him, but not a lot of stats or production there. He only carried the ball like 13 times last year. I think he'll take on the Dylan Sampson role. He'll probably end up with like 80 to 100 carries if he stays healthy. And I think Dylan Sampson will probably rush for 1,000 yards just like Jalen Wright did last year. I like this room. Again, not a lot of depth, not a lot of returning production, but I do like this room. Number 11 is Missouri. Missouri could be ranked higher on here, and I'll tell you why. Cody Schrader, obviously gone. Really good year last year. They do bring in App State transfer Nate Newell, 834 yards, 5 touchdowns, 4.8 yards per carry. But this is the guy to keep an eye out on. Marcus Carroll from Georgia State, guys. He was up for a bunch of awards last year out of Georgia State. He had 274 carries, 1,350 yards, 4.9 yards per carry. He had a very, very good year for Georgia State. If he can replicate 80% of that production, if Nate Noel can replicate 70 to 80% of that production, this room could be higher. Again, a lot of these guys down the list have talent. They just don't have the production to match. So we'll see if they can jump up. I have Missouri at 11 for that reason, and I can't believe they're this low, guys, but they are for a reason. Number 12, I have LSU. LSU lost Logan Diggs to Ole Miss. Noah Cain is no longer there. John Emery is no longer there. You have Josh Williams, who was a walk-on a couple years ago, had 400 total yards and 6 touchdowns last year. Caleb Jackson, a sophomore, highly decorated freshman last year, only 150 yards and 3 touchdowns. The only reason they're not lower on this list is this guy, Caleb Durham out of high school, the 6th ranked running back in the country. I'm betting on him because if he does not hit, guys, this might be the second worst, mate. This is probably the 3rd worst room in the country if Caleb Durham does not come and play well for LSU. I think I'm just going to break some news to you. Vanderbilt, Mississippi State are the worst. I think LSU is number 13. I would drop him down a spot if this production doesn't happen from Caleb Durham. I don't honestly think they can get much higher than this, guys. I think maybe at the end of the year they could be the 11th or 10th. But the 10th is like the best I could see this room being. This is not a good room. This is really sad. You used to have what, Leonard Fournette, Jeremy Hill, guys like that. And they do not have someone like that with that production right now. They don't. Can Caleb Durham do that? We'll have to see. Number 13, and wow, they have fallen. Arkansas. There's not much here. You have Jaquindon Jackson, who I really like, but that's about it. 4.9 yards per carry, 797 yards and 4 touchdowns. You have Braylon Russell as the 26th ranked running back out of high school coming in. You have Rashad Dubignon. I'm not really sure how to pronounce his last name. 260 yards, only 3.2 yards per carry and 1 touchdown. If Jaquindon Jackson doesn't have a fantastic year, and Taylor Green at the quarterback position doesn't have a good year running the ball, this team is the second worst team in the SEC. I've already made that prediction off of just going off the quarterbacks and running backs. I think they're definitely one of the 3 worst teams in the SEC. I think they could possibly be the second worst team. I think Vanderbilt's going to end up being the worst team, but this is bad, guys. I mean, I love Jaquinton Jackson. I hope he has a good year. I hope he stays healthy, but I just don't think this Arkansas team is going to be very good. And then a team that could jump up a little bit higher, depending on how Chip Trayanum does, is Kentucky at 14. You have Kentucky with him. He had 373 yards last year as like the 3rd best running back on Ohio State, even though I think he might have been the best. They should have played him more. And then you have senior Demi Sumo Caring-Bay. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. He transferred in last year, I believe, from North Carolina State. Didn't do much last year. And then Jamarion Wilcox is kind of a do-it-everything guy out of the backfield. Can run it, can catch it. We'll see what he does for them this year. But overall, not a great room. Obviously, Ray Davis, not much was thought of him coming in. And he had over 1,000 yards. He's in the NFL now. Chip Trayanum could possibly do that. We'll see if he does that. I think you could see them as high as 11 on this list. I don't think they pass Missouri, but they could pass LSU. Like I said, LSU doesn't have much there. And then a team, listen, you could have been higher if you kept one guy. Jaquavius Marks transferred out, went to USC, and this room is god-awful. It is not good. You have Jeff Pittman. He was a JUCO guy last year coming out. 268 yards, 1 touchdown at Mississippi State last year coming in from JUCO. You have Penn State transfer Kevion Lee, 12 carries, 75 yards, not great. And then you do have this guy. And I think if you're going to get high-end production, it's going to be from this guy. Johnny Daniels was the number 1 ranked running back out of JUCO coming out last year. We'll see what he does. I think, honestly, that's who you're going to have to go with because I think you've seen enough of Jeff Pittman. I don't think he's that good. And Kevion Lee didn't produce at Penn State. He's probably not going to produce at Mississippi State. So Johnny Daniels is the only guy you can count on here to maybe bump you up this list, and it's not going to be very far. If you kept Jaquavius Marks away from USC, you probably would have ended up in the 11 or 12 range, but you really dropped here. And then Vanderbilt. They returned basically everyone. The problem is they had no guys that got averaged over 4 yards per carry. You had Chase Gillespie, who I do actually think is a good player. I think he's just in a really bad situation with Vanderbilt. And then you had Cedric Alexander there as well coming back. So that is 1 through 16. I think you can debate 1 through 3 and Texas A&M, Texas A&M, Ole Miss. I think those are 3 you can debate for that 1 spot. I think my biggest climbers at the end of the year will probably be Alabama at 5. I think they could climb up all the way to number 2. I think Oklahoma at 8 could probably climb up all the way to number 3 or 4. And I think South Carolina, if healthy, could also climb up to 3 or 4. But everywhere else, no offense, it really drops off after Tennessee or Missouri. Like LSU at 12 is not good. I don't really see it getting much better. Arkansas at 13 is not great. Kentucky at 14 is not great. Mississippi State at 15, Vanderbilt at 16. They're just at the bottom of this is pretty bad. It really drops off after Missouri at 11 with even potential, honestly. So we'll have to see how that turns out. Tennessee is my dark horse in the SEC. Josh with QB Nico. I 100% agree. Overall, I think Tennessee is definitely a dark horse, Adam. But I do not see a possibility for that running back room to get much better than what I had him at, which is, I believe, 10. So we'll have to see about that. I like your show. I appreciate that 5, Adam. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe. Kentucky can win 7 games. QB Brack from Georgia. Yeah, I think Kentucky can win 7 games because of Brock Vandergriff. I think Chip Trayanum will actually have a decent year if he's healthy. The problem is if he's hurt, they have nothing coming back in that room for the running backs. So it would be very, very interesting. Overall, I think, like I said, it really drops off after Tennessee or Missouri after 11. I think you could debate 11 probably through 7 you can debate. I think 6 through 4 you can debate. And then 3 through 1 you can debate. Those are the kind of tiers. So my great tier is Texas, Ole Miss, A&M. That'd be my first tier. My talent, but I don't know tier is Georgia, Alabama, Florida, Auburn, and then Oklahoma, South Carolina, and Tennessee have room to grow, and we'll see. The rest after that is just not very good. Just not good. So we'll have to see what happens. But I did end up with Texas' number 1 ranked running back room and the number 1 ranked quarterback room. I do think Texas is going to be number 1 on a lot of these offensive rooms. When you get to defense, I can tell you as a Texas fan, they're not going to be. There's very few places where I feel confident about this defense. So if you're thinking I'm a Texas homer, wait till we get to the defense. But the offense is going to be very good. I'm very confident that. I love this running back room. I love the quarterback room. I think the offensive line, once I break it down, will probably end up being 1 or 2 in the SEC. And then we'll have to see when we get to defense. It's going to be very, very iffy. But again, guys, this is Horns Huddle Live number 6. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. It really helps out the channel, what we're growing here. If you're on Twitter, please go to YouTube, type in MarkRogersTV, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to the Texas channel on there as well. That really helps out. That's what we're trying to grow. I really appreciate you guys being here. I think that's all we have for you today because most of you are on Twitter and I can't see your comments. Please go over to YouTube because if you comment, we can keep the show going and we can really build a brand here, what we're trying to do at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football for Texas and Mark Rogers TV in general. But again, guys, please hit that like button. Please subscribe. We talk Texas building the super offense with the 3 recruits and Corian Moore, Jamie French, and Khalil Lockett. And then we also talked running back rankings of the SEC. We are off Memorial Day, the 27th. I will be back, though, the week after, and we're going to be breaking down offensive line rooms. Mark will be back here as well. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. Hook them, guys. And if not, even if you don't, throw the horns down, whatever you want to do. But hit that like button and subscribe. Thank you, guys.